Hi, my name's Chris. I'm the lighting designer for Single Asian Female for State Theatre Company. So before coming into the rehearsal room, when we're sort of conceiving the design, I work with Nisha, the director, and Elsa, the set designer, and we'll decide how we want to present the work, like what's the best way. For a show like this, I think a fairly realistic approach is always nice because you're able to support the actors in their storytelling with a surrounding that backs up what they're feeling and what they're going through. So in this instance, that's a Chinese restaurant with some living spaces above it. For lighting, in terms of how to light a set like this, it's not just about the set, it's also about the show, what's the narrative and the story that we're trying to tell within the story and how we're trying to present the work. There's a lot of different ways that you can do the same play. And in this instance, we've gone for a fully realised Wes Anderson-y set design, and so those sort of influences come into the way that I realise the lighting, also through conversations with Nisha and Elsa, the set designer, as well. For this show, I'm taking an approach of a bit of a heightened realism, so we've got fairly naturalistic lighting, influences from time of day. To an extent, I don't like to lean into that too much, but we're trying to keep the world as vivid and rich as possible. So whereas in a normal Chinese restaurant it might be not overly lit, this will have quite a rich patina and quite a lustre to it. So that's the approach that I'm taking to the lighting for the show. In terms of the emotional story of the play, that's sort of what I lean into most with my lighting. I like to build an emotional journey through the work. There are a number of things we can use to tell that story. There's angle of light, there's brightness, there's colour, and also time. Time is the other factor in lighting. You can't really tell that from a photograph, but when watching a show you might have a light that moves or fades or does some sort of shift over any period of time. 30 seconds, could be 5 minutes. If there's a monologue that's telling a particular storytelling quality or something about the story that's being revealed, you might want to have a shift of light that's happening over that period of time. For this show, I would tend to lean into colour quite heavily, and also angle of light. There's a few scenes where we're taken out of the reality of the show and we build a beautiful sort of Jeffrey Crewdson style image on stage, and so the angle of light will be quite dramatic in those moments, and also colour. In terms of the detail in the set, I wouldn't say it's easier or harder to light. I think it's just different. I think it's also dependent on the scale of the performance that you're doing. In this instance, we're in the Dunstan Playhouse, so we have quite a lot of equipment that we can draw on and make use of. I think it often responds to the space that you're in as well. The scale of the stage, the size of the space. I think the Dunstan Playhouse can go to 14 metres wide. In this instance, we're about 9.6 metres to the edges of the set. Often I find the smaller the stage space is, the more you can economise on lighting and use more equipment to tell the story in that smaller space. So it's nice that we're not using the full proscenium width in this instance. In terms of the detail in the set, sometimes it can be helpful because it means that if you're casting a light from a particular angle where you've got a shadow from that light, if there's visual elements in the space that can break that shadow up, it can often be helpful to not distract from what's happening on stage. So it allows me to use some lighting angles that I might not otherwise be able to use in a show like this, where you've got a flat back wall, because you'll get shadows on there that could be distracting.
A tiny bit about in preparation for each. So childish.